want to follow up a little bit on the video I just made about using a handheld stitcher to make sketches and work in landscape design. Here's a pillowcase. It's really kind of an old one. And I'm using scrap fabrics. Now this part I'm probably going to do on my model 237. Now this is partially my street. So I'm using old denim strips. You know, when you sew, you usually have scraps of fabric around your machine so that when you go to start the thread or test the tension or something. So these are my machine scraps that the streets here are denim. The two blue calico type rectangles are actually two houses on the street that aren't mine. The square I showed in the other video is going to be where my house is, and my house happens to be a duplex, so I've got an extra square next to it. Now these aren't sewn yet, but what I'm going to do is applique, and I might, if I can find another strip, continue the road down this way. But this is without cutting the pillowcase into smaller pieces and using scrap fabrics. And so there are three houses and the road and another house across the street. Now, in my neighborhood, across the street from me, this is all pine trees. And I love those trees. I mean, I've looked at those trees for like 27 years. So now, either using the flower foot on the model 237 or doing it by hand in colored thread, or even using Model 20s, I have 6 of them. I could set them up with each with a different color thread. And after I get the main buildings in place, I can just put this into a Model 20 and add flowers or trees. Now I probably have to back these up a little bit because what I want to preserve is a memory of this yard. So this one isn't to scale, but you're getting the idea of what I'm talking about. Right at my front door is about a 40-year-old pink rhododendron that is gorgeous. So I would be doing pink here. My white pine was in the backyard here. So once I get the structures down on this page, I can then just go in and add any of the garden elements that I want to. Now, this isn't what I would show a client, but it's similar. I would use all the same fabrics. It would look a little bit more professional. They would all be stitched together. And, you know, but this pillowcase, this actually was my son's. And I know it's the one that when he had his wisdom teeth out, he had a hard time. It was more of a surgery than just pulling teeth. And so I get to save the pillowcase, even though it's really kind of, you know, scrummy, and take scrap fabrics, and it's going to be a landscape design that is actually going to be a memory quilt in a sense, even though it's the size of a pillowcase, with not only where our house is, but the plants that were here. For example, when he was about 8, we had a tree over here on the side of the house that was about 100-year-old pine, and it got pine borer beetle, and they had to take it down. And he woke me up one morning at about 6 o'clock. He came running in and he said, "Mom, they're cutting down my tree." I mean, it's just like Christopher Robin and the 100-Acre Wood. That was his tree. And so I went out and I was fighting with about 5 guys at 6 o'clock in the morning in my pajamas. And then, and I was a horticulturist at the time, and I thought, why are they doing this? This is just, you know, property management or something. But actually, he showed me how bad the tree was, and it would have come down and hit the house if they hadn't taken it down. So, but that's a memory from like 20 years ago. I can now add that tree back in, and we have our tree. So this is what I'm talking about with moving to textiles for landscape design. Now, I've seen some, I believe they were African, but I'm not sure where in Africa, quilts where the women do something similar, but they do it with all different yarns, and their purpose isn't landscape design. Their purpose is just to make pictures on the quilts. But I think that, for example, if all of these were the same fabrics, and they looked a little neater, and then I go in, and on this, because I don't want to cut up the pillowcase, I'll probably use the flower foot on the Singer Model 237. I then go in and add the plants. This is something in a more professional way. If I did it, with better fabrics and stuff, I could show this to a client and say, these are my recommendations for your yard. This is where you want to put a deck. You don't want to put a deck over here because the septic tank is too close. I mean, you can do landscape design in fabric, and then you have a washable, reusable record of your drawings. A lot of my pen and ink is done on Winsor & Newton hot press watercolor paper, and I have to keep them in bins, excuse me, so that they don't get ruined. I mean, art storage is a whole thing. This means I can continue doing landscape design while I'm moving, or even, like I've been saying, to be more earth friendly. And with a few different fabrics or fabric scraps, I think you now get the idea of what I've been talking about. It's going to be fun.